Okay, we are going to start by talking about the circumference of a circle. I need you paying attention. Okay, I also want you to grab your calculator out because you are going to absolutely need your calculator today. Okay, and not to remember pi, but we'll talk about pi. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. So first of all, we have to know these parts of a circle. If we don't know the parts of a circle, it's going to be nearly impossible to do this. Okay. So we have a circle, and I don't know if this is labeled on yours or not. I don't think it is. Okay. So you may need to label a little bit of this. The line right here is a radius, right? The radius goes from the center to the edge. Okay, that's that half of a line. Okay, the shorter line is the radius. The line that goes all the way across is the diameter. Okay. So label those things. The diameter goes all the way across. The radius goes halfways across. Circumference is like our perimeter of circles. Circumference is the distance around a circle. Now, I don't know why somebody decided to call it circumference instead of perimeter, because it's really the same thing, right? Perimeter deals with other shapes. Squares, rectangles, triangles, odd shapes, that's called perimeter, okay? When we're dealing with circles, we call it circumference. Why they chose that, I'm not sure. I know it looks a little bit different on yours. It's okay. Okay? You need to understand the relationship between diameter and radius, okay? Diameter, so you have a line on your paper that says diameter, D. D is 2 times the radius, okay? And radius is the diameter divided by 2. Okay, so you have to understand those relations because when we start finding circumference of a circle, we need a certain formula. Okay, to find circumference of a circle, and this is on your paper, circumference equals pi times diameter. Okay, that is on your paper, I think. Okay, so C stands for circumference, D stands for diameter. Now pi, that symbol pi. Pi is a number that some mathematicians figured out. They started looking at a bunch of circles and realized that there's a relationship between the distance around a circle and the diameter. And no matter what size circle you have, if you measure the distance around a circle and you divide it by the diameter, you always get the same ratio. And it's 3.14 and so on. Okay, now remember pi is that number that never ends. Okay, it keeps going. Yes, I know there's a pi button on your calculator. We are not going to use it. Okay, we are not going to use that button because if we use that button, then some people use it, some people don't. We all get different answers. We are going to use 3.14. As far as we are concerned in 7th grade math, we're just going to use 3.14 for pi in every single problem that we do. Okay, so oh, hang on a second. Yeah, we're here. Okay, so if I want to find the circumference of a wheel, this is on your notes, find the circumference of a wheel of a diameter 50 centimeters. Use pi equals 3.14 and write the formula for circumference first, okay? So on your paper, I gave you some blanks. Circumference, C equals pi times diameter. That's really important. Okay, if we know the formula, now we can solve it. We can substitute in and solve it. Do we know the circumference of that wheel? No. Do we know pi?
Yeah.
What is pi? Go ahead, Sydney. 3.14. And the diameter is 50 centimeters. So you are just going to grab your calculator at that point, and you're going to type in your calculator, 3.14 times 50. You get 157 centimeters. So the circumference of the wheel, the distance around it, is 157 centimeters. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at this one. A plate has a radius of 15 centimeters. Find the circumference of the plate. Okay, we're going to start with the formula. I always start with the formula. C for circumference equals pi times d. Okay, I don't know the circumference. Do we know pi? Pi, we're always going to use 3.14. Says D. D stands for diameter. What is the diameter of that plate? 30, right? We can't put 15 because 15 is the radius. And to get the diameter, we need to do 2 times the radius, so the diameter is 30. So 3.14 times 30, we get 94.2 centimeters. So far, so good? Okay, flip the page. Okay, so a little bit of challenge on this one. A pie has a circumference of 30 centimeters. Find the diameter of the pie. What formula am I using? Ellie. So again, I'm going to start by writing that formula. If I start with the formula, it's really hard to mess up. If I make sure I'm starting with the right formula. And when you guys make mistakes, it's typically because you start with the wrong formula. Okay, so I have C equals pi times diameter. Do I know the C?
Yes.
Yeah. It tells me that the circumference is 30. So I'm going to put 30 in for C. Pi is 3.14 times D. I'm trying to find the diameter of the pie. So how am I going to solve this, Eddie?
30 divided by 2.
We're solving this equation. We're going to divide each side by 3.14. So 30 divided by 3.14. I get, we're going to round to the nearest tenth. 9.6. And we should label it centimeters. Okay? On every problem that we get a big long decimal, you're going to round to the nearest tenth. Okay? So the diameter is 9.6. Now what if I said, I don't want the diameter, I want to know the radius of the pie? Divide that by 2. So if I wanted to know the radius, I could do 9.6 divided by 2. And we would have 4.8 centimeters is the radius. So we could potentially find both. Questions there? Does that make sense? Right? Pi does look good. Okay. All right. Oops, that's not what I need. Okay, then we have area of a circle. Okay, so area of a circle. We have one formula for that. It's area equals pi times radius squared, pi r squared. Okay. Again, pi is 3.14. That's what we use for pi. R squared means radius squared. What does it mean to square something? Multiply by itself. You have a button on your calculator that will do that for you. Do we all know where that squared button is? Okay. There's a little x squared button on your calculator. Okay. You can either, if I said the radius was 5, you can either do 5 times 5 or you can do 5 squared and hit equals. It'll give you the same thing, right? You get 25 no matter what. Okay. So on this particular example, it says the diameter is 10 centimeters. Okay. if I want to find the area, I have to know the radius. So the radius of this circle would be 5, right? Because the radius is the diameter divided by 2 or half of the diameter. So the radius in this particular one is 5 centimeters. Okay, it's super important we're starting with the correct numbers. So to find area, and this is already on your paper, we're going to do 3.14 times radius squared, 5 squared. So 3.14 times 5 squared, and you get, Thor? 78.5 centimeters squared. Okay, would be the area of that circle. Now, area is different from circumference, right? Circumference is around it. Area is covering it. Mason, question.
Where do I find the square root button on this?
You're not doing square root. We're squaring.
Yeah.
It's right here. It says x squared. See where it says x squared?
Yeah.
That's the button. So you do 5, hit that button, hit equals, times 3.14. Or you just do 5 times 5 times 3.14.
This is error.
You
How many
can
times
just,
do you press it?
no. Hit the button. 5, x squared. No, that's not squared, right there. There we go. Okay? No other buttons. I didn't tell you press any other buttons. Just that one button. Okay. So we're gonna pause at that. We'll come. All right. So looking at the next slide. Okay. Area of a circle. You guys always start with the formula. That way you know you're doing the right thing. Area is pi times radius squared. Okay. Pi is what? What's pi? 3.14. What's the radius of this circle? Thor. 10. Right? This is the diameter. The diameter goes all the way across. So the radius is 10. So we would do 10 squared. And 3.14 times 10 squared. Put that in your calculator. Figure out the answer. What do you get, Addie? 314. What would I label that? Inches squared. Because it's area. It's inches squared. Okay. Second one. Again, pi times radius squared. Sounds like area to me. Okay. Pi is 3.14. What's the radius of this circle? Bracken. No.
Oh, I meant 12.
12, yeah. So we have to do 12 squared. So you have to be careful when looking at the picture. The radius goes halfway across, so this is the radius. It's the number I need. 12 squared is 144 times 3.14. Rounding to the nearest tenth, you get 452.2 feet squared. Okay, questions there? Any questions there? Okay, last one we're gonna do. We're only gonna do this top one. Okay, we're not gonna worry about the bottom one. Number one, a bicycle odometer recorded 147 revolutions of a wheel with a diameter of 1.3 feet. How far did the bicycle travel? Are we finding area or circumference? When you read that problem, think about it for a second. Tyler, put your calculator down because you don't need it right now. Think about this problem. Are you finding area or circumference? So if you think about if this was the bicycle wheel, right, and the wheel is traveling along the ground, it's the outside of the wheel that touches the ground. So we're talking about circumference. And circumference equals pi times diameter. So I first of all need to find that. Pi times diameter, 3.14 times the diameter is 1.3. So 3.14 times 1.3, rounding to the nearest 10, you get 4.1 feet. Does that answer the question? Is that how far the bicycle traveled?
No.
What does that number represent? 4.1 feet. Sydney. That's the circumference. That's just one time around. That's if the wheel just rolled one rotation, it went 4.1 feet. How far is the wheel? How many times is the wheel going around, Brecken? So what should we do? Times that by 147. So 4.1 times 147. That's 602.7 feet that the bicycle actually traveled. I have the wrong problem on here. So we're gonna skip that second problem. Okay, don't worry about that. Questions there?